many like weaknesses exposed. Like Fnatic didn't use double teleport to punish. They had no sense of how to play their winning lanes into an advantage on the map. They lost first tower in 2 games where they should have 100% gotten it. So Fnatic was weak and H2k looked strong, but how strong? And that's what we're going to discover today.
And it feels to me like it is just that reset. We want to believe that H2k are so strong because they beat Fnatic, but when we look at the facts, we look at the way the game unfolded, we just have to understand that we're not entirely sure what the limits here are going to be. Splyce, of course, a very strong team in the regular season. And we're starting to get through the bans now. Yeah,
and I'm already liking these 2 bans from Splyce here. Giving away Shen first pick is very risky, especially against a team with a player of the style of Odoamne in standard lanes. And then at least taking away from Jankos, probably the strongest early game jungler, bar maybe Rek'Sai. If H2k has Rek'Sai open, I think they'll first pick it, but that will be knowingly done so by Splyce, who will then trade it for comfort picks of their own.
Really interesting to see the Aurelion Soul Ban come out as well. We saw it today in the KT versus Rox Tigers series, and it was a very impressive thing to see, really valuable in the current meta with roaming mid laners, and he does have quite the high skill cap, but it does seem that over time, Senkux has definitely understood the champion.
Yeah, and Europe so far seems to gravitate towards like a top lane meta very often, where mid pressure translated into bot lane dives hasn't really existed that much that we've seen in the quarterfinals. But I think as we ramp up and we see better teams with better understanding of macro game come out, I think that's more of a gameplay pattern that we'll see. So the likes of an Aurelion Sol or a Taliyah pushing in mid and going for a bot lane dive, I think is likely.
Yeah, and when you have a Rek'Sai as well, it makes setting up for those dives fairly easy, but it's no surprise that we see the Rek'Sai coming out very early from the side of H2k and an immediate response from Splyce.
Gnar and Ashe locked in instantly. Gnar, a hugely rising pick now that we are committed to standard lanes on the current patch, and Ashe as well, something we haven't seen as much in Europe.
But it shows you that Splyce know exactly what they're doing. They ban Elise and Shen, and then they must know about Rek'Sai being strong in this patch. And they decide not to ban it themselves, but get rid of Sivir, which worked really well for H2k. And they give away Rek'Sai, but they instant lock Gnar and Ashe. So this iteration of picks and bans has been planned to a T from Splyce. Whether it will work, we'll have to see, but at least they were ready for the Rek'Sai pick. It's no surprise.
Now bear in mind that the Echo is still open, a very solid pick into the Gnar. Something that Odoamne did have a very impressive performance in the past. And it does look like we were just talking about these roaming mid laners, and instantly Ryu goes for it. This was something that we saw from him in the last few weeks of the regular season, where he had a very good performance.
Yeah, and it's something we'll see more throughout the series, because Taliyah is just a really strong blind pick mid, because she has inherent clear and she has roaming potential. And if a matchup is bad 1v1, at least you can escape it by roaming, especially if your strong laners top and bot, like H2k likes to draft. It's definitely possible to make a lot of plays there. Yep. So I'm a big fan of just the early rotation to Taliyah on blue side.
Of course, one of those champions that has been rising in popularity. We saw it in LCK and just about all 5 games, either picked or banned. So no surprises to see it here as well. And of course, Odoamne getting that Echo, something comfortable for him. But Splyce, as you said, do you feel like they've continued to plan out this pick ban? They get the Vladimir and the Gragas as their second rotation.
Well, they've left their support for the final pick, and I wonder whether or not they're saving that, because we saw from H2k in their series against Fnatic that they prioritize things like the Taric that Splyce could very well be waiting for.
I don't think it's necessarily a counter pick. It's just if you look at the draft has evolved, first rotation you plan, the second one you don't plan. Unless you're going for like a Curse of the Sad bullet time composition, you know, where you play my comp beats yours regardless of what you play, but this is purely reactionary. They can match mid because they've seen mid pick, and then they can just pick the remaining jungler. They know they're going to be playing Gragas to Rek'Sai regardless of what happens, so there's no point in picking support early. Like, you get some value of the counter pick, but it's not like this entire comp is set up for a support counter pick. It's just the way the draft evolved after picking up the priority champs in the first rotation.
I mean, I feel with the Tahm Kench of it that it's almost like that they were somewhat expecting the Taric, because it is a very good pick into the champion.
They expected the champion that Vander played all 3 games in quarterfinals. Wow, they must have done their research, boys.
Well, I mean, one of 3 viable support champions consistently, you know.
But it's also interesting the fact that Forgiven going to be on that Lucian once again. Pretty powerful in the hands of that player, something that he is extremely comfortable on, and he can have a lot of lane dominance, especially up against the end.
And more importantly, it's because there's already inherent synergy building in any of these lanes. Rek'Sai can gank all 3 lanes, and that's really good for H2k and for Jankos, because any knock-up into a W combo for Ryu is going to be a kill. Taric stun into knock-up is going to be a kill, and that's why I think this Tahm Kench is really important in the bottom lane too, because he can actually save Ashe. It is incredibly hard to even lane or kill Ashe Tahm Kench without a gank. So if Splyce can get deports early, find out where Jankos is, and predict his ganks, they can actually take control of the map, because they have ways to beat these. Look in the mid lane too. A well-timed Vladimir Poole is going to dodge a lot of ganks, and Gnar with proper warding and being careful, should be able to dodge them too.
And of course, as we look at these two teams, it feels like once again it all comes back to the jungle. There are those strong individual solo lanes. Interesting picks here too with Forgiven picking up that Comfort Lucian, but bringing it back once again to this Rex side to Jankos in the jungle, the first Blood King.
Yeah, he does like to be aggressive. We saw that earlier on with his jungle gravity where he basically likes to spend as much time as possible with his laners trying to set up ganks, and he roams a lot with Vanda, and with this Rek'Sai and Turret combo, he's going to be able to do that. But looking at the overall compositions, what I think the big difference is from what we saw from the quarterfinals is when we saw H2k versus Fnatic. Fnatic had a lot of losing lanes in the mid and in the side lanes, and that is not the case in this first game.
No, they have a much better setup overall, and it seems to be working quite well for them. But, of course, champions are locked in, and the players are ready. It's time to jump into Game 1 of this semifinal between Splyce and H2k.
Today we're facing Splyce in the semifinals. This game means a lot to us because it's pretty much our ticket to world. This season, even though it didn't look good at the start, maybe we can win it all.
We just want to get the best result that we can. It's already been a really good split for us, and we just want to make it even better.
Oh, no.
They said camera 20. That's
No,
camera 20.
no, we're back, we're back,
Lied
we're
to
back.
us.
Ladies and gentlemen, semifinal, we're ready. It's no longer camera 20, but we tried our hardest. And you can be sure that Splyce and H2k are in the same boat as we get ready for Game 1 here.
Some tomfoolery. For people that follow the bot lane stream, that was Kevin telling us to turn around, and then he uses the front camera.
Oh, Kevin.
Classic Kevin.
But of course, a lot on the line here for both of these teams. Splyce, the rookie lineup in playoffs.
They actually brought fans. There's like an angry mob of Danish guys speaking with mouths full of potatoes right in front of Splyce. They even got a little cheer from the Splyce players themselves. So it's actually really great to see, you know, the fans come out supporting their teams.
Something you're not used to, eh, Grappo?
Oh,
Oh my God.
what's that?
You came to play. Welcome, Vedius.
First split. All right.
Feeling a little confident?
Just got to start, you know, we got to set the premise of this cast early on. But
He's taking off to the Fishy already.
The constant stream of BM. Of course, getting set up. It's going to be standard lanes, as it always has been on 6:15. Looks relatively comfortable starts, although a little bit of push for deeper vision from H2k.
So standard lanes, as you mentioned, this was something that we did bring up in Champion Select. And if we look across the board, Wonder has the slight advantage up in the top lane because he's playing the Nut. He has the range advantage. He can get the push onto Echo. In the mid, Talia is the one that will typically have the push early on because she can just constantly spam that Q out, and the Vlad is going to struggle to match that. In the bottom lane, this one's a bit of a dicey situation because you do have the Lucian who has powerful trading power, but then when you look at the Ashe, her ability to clear waves, it's a little bit stronger when you compare it up to the Lucian.
Yeah, Tom Kench also has like harass range potential. You need to look at like what this actually does for these teams, you know, whether this push translates in inherent pressure or not. That's what we're going to track here. Both teams did a camp here. Early access for the Ashe, so this is really comfortable for Kabi and Mickey because they should be able to dodge most of their ass. There is actually kill pressure on Tom Kench in these lanes very early if Jankos shows up, because after doing camp and going to lane, support still needs a standard amount of time, which means there's actually a level 3 gank possible to one-shot the Tom Kench because he won't have grey health until level 3. It happens very rarely, but sometimes they get it off.
And definitely an option. Jankos does jungle from top to bottom, so will be set up to gank the bottom lane if necessary. And additionally, his lane already coming out on top in some of those smaller trades. Ashe really poking down the Tark. Of course, relatively easy to heal up, but we got to keep our eyes on Jankos.
Yeah, we got to track where he started. He actually skipped blue, started top side, so he went Gromp, Wolves, then clear, and he's going for an early level 3 gank here. You know, if he can connect with Mickey, as we said, you know, knock up into stun.
Knock up, damage coming out, exhaust goes down, Mickey now set to fall, looking for the flash out, is going to make it, max range.
And that was so close to being a prophecy, you know, no grey health available. Tom Kench always feels super safe, but level 3 is the perfect timing here, and Jankos already getting pressure.
Action doesn't, oh, gets nothing.
Gets a flash.
Gets a flash, does manage to make it out there, but already Jankos throwing down the gauntlet, throwing down the pressure, 2 quick flashes.
And he's showing his understanding of these clear paths, you know, because he skipped his blue buff, because Rek'Sai doesn't need it. This will also later influence the Talia matchup, because he'll hand it off much earlier. But he basically races a camp ahead, get his level 3 efficiently, and then invades on the Gragas, who has a really risky slow clear early.
And remember that he's not going to have his bottom lane to come up and support him too, because Mickey just got chunked out of lane. Jankos knows he has the support of Forgiven and Vanna should he need it. And on the Rek'Sai versus Gragas, as Krepo was mentioning, he's really not going to be able to come out ahead in this exchange. So this is typical Jankos playstyle, where he's always looking to set up advantages for his team. But Trashy
doing something similar. Odoamne, that's a quick first blood.
This is completely unexpected. The Trashy hasn't based most of the time when he's chunked. People expect him to base and continue his clear himself, but he walked all the way to the other side of the map, and Odoamne honestly caught with his pants down, and this is a great gank timing from Trashy. We can't understate this. This is so important for the flow of this top lane matchup.
And it's really nice to see both junglers sticking to their styles, because while Trashy isn't typically as aggressive, he is the sort of player that will sit and wait for an opportunity to strike. He noticed that Odoamne got the early level 2, was able to get the push onto Wonder. That resulted in Odo ever so slightly overextending. Trashy was able to capitalize, punish, get the first blood onto Wonder, and this is a great start for Splyce.
Yeah, and this is also the evolution of that early path, you know, skipping blue, handing it off, giving Ryu more control, which means on his 6, he'll be pushing out mid lane, and then have the ability to influence either side lane, maybe getting them back. Ryu's a pretty common Taliyah player, even in solo queue, having very high impact, mostly due to roams here. So definitely proficient on this champion.
Of course, approaching level 6 as well, so Weaver's Wall will soon be up and available, potentially making for some cross-map plays, but with that first kill already dropping on the top side, pressure's starting to look in favor of Splyce, but as H2k push in, maybe not.
Yeah, H2k definitely have pressure on bot lane since Tahm Kench's flash has been blown, so he can't position aggressively and basically has to play like as if Thresh is playing in the Lantern position. Always have Devour ready, but that doesn't mean they're going to lose any CS. Splyce is aware of the Rek'Sai potentially being top jungler because there were some things on him earlier. However, they may not be ready for the 3-man dive with Taliyah.
Taliyah on the way in. Weaver's Wall comes out, zones him back from the tower. Wonder in trouble. Hop, skip, and a jump not going to be enough. Flash taking him to safety. Meganar not coming out. And Ryu picking up that kill in response.
And even though they pinged him in River, because there was a question mark ping about 40 seconds ago in River, in between wards, potentially indicating that Rek'Sai could be there because they knew he had no blue buff. So this is all deduction, you know. They see Taliyah come mid with blue buff. Okay. The Rek'Sai handed it off. What's Rek'Sai's next logical move? Well, it may be to path into the jungle top and dive, but the problem is there was no counterplay ready. There is no teleport mid here, and H2k are really working towards the grab.
Stun still comes out. Wonder, what are you doing? This is not what you want. He gets cut down again.
Wonder uses his teleport to try and protect the tower. He thinks that he's going to be healthy enough to set up that dive, but he does not respect the fact that there is so much damage available in this duel.
And this is poor planning. Granted, these scenarios don't really happen too much, but if we look back and we kind of play like backseat gaming, you know, the hindsight 2020, the correct play here for Splyce is to have Wunder TP bot on a creep and force a 4-man dive while Vladimir roams down. Because Taliyah went top, the counter for you is to cross map and go bottom here. But you can clearly see that Splyce in this game 1 is a little bit uncomfortable. They got caught off guard by the 3-man dive top, Wunder overstayed, which is fine, that happens. But then the correct play would be to use your teleport that he had an advantage over because Odoamne's teleport was down, to go bottom and force a 5v2 dive, which even super effective against the likes of Forgiven. Just tilts.
And you even had Trashy already in the bottom half of the map, because the moment he saw Jankos set up for the gank, he immediately went in for the invade. You can see all the deep vision in H2k's bottom half of the map. And that's just resulting in Trashy trying to respond to the pressure the Jankos are trying to exert.
Now, the only saving grace right now for Splyce is that they are a team that has historically done decently well in lane swaps despite having an early deficit in gold in a lot of the games. And one of the main reasons is that Splyce is a team that understands how to play an open map, which basically means a lot of tier 1 talent is dead. Mainly because when they draft Tahm Kench picks, and you'll see this later on, they'll put Kobe and Mikix mid, as Trashy is being challenged here.
Yeah, decent amount of poke there. Continue.
They'll put Kobe and Mickey mid, and then use the Tahm Kench ulti to gank the side lanes here. That's hopefully their game plan later. H2k already have a big lead, and they're looking to beat up Wunder.
Tunnel over the wall, knockup goes in, Meganar on the way, but I don't think it's gonna be enough. In comes Gragas, buying time, Rage is still ticking up, no! Gets hit by the Time Wanderer on the back half.
And this is just constant, relentless pressure coming out from Jankos to shut down the already weak Gnar in the top lane. Odo had a big minion wave pushing in his favor. Jankos had a pre-prepared tunnel to set up for the flank. They get the collapse done onto Wonder, and even though Trashy's there to respond, he just cannot do enough to keep his top laner alive.
And gentlemen, as we approach a 3K gold lead, we talked about this in Champion Select, Splyce needing to get down deep vision to shut down Jankos, and they just have not.
They have not, but they knew he was there, but it's not about the vision only, it's about thinking what the enemy composition can do and also planning your next move Ahead of time. Right now, look at the siphoning of pressure here. Top lane pushed in, which means Odoame is freed up. He can just move mid for some additional pressure. Maybe he can get bottom off the turret. Maybe he can steal away Raptors here. But Trashy is being continuously challenged in his own jungle. Look at Jankos here. Krugs are up, red buff is up, Gromp is up, but he doesn't care. He's just taking away from Trashy and getting a net gain for his team.
And I'm just really impressed with Jankos' pathing overall, because we talked about how the lane advantage was in favor of Splyce up top, the mid lane was in favor of H2k, and the bottom lane was a slightly undecided one. So Jankos went straight bot early. He got that advantage. He enabled H2k to have a solid laning phase, and then he focused all of his attention onto the top side of the map, which was their only weak lane. And now H2k have 3 strong lanes that are constantly pushing in their favor, which is exactly how this team likes to play.
And not just 3 strong lanes, a strong jungler as well. You can see Jankos busting out the Tiamat, a sure sign of confidence, improving that jungle clear, and also giving him so much more damage here in the early game.
Yeah, but we already see what this series is going to be all about. After we maybe swap sides. H2k will have side selection in the next game, so they could actually repeat this pick and ban. We see more pressure on Seconds here. Has Pool and Summer, so he'll be fine, but it's more about burning them. Every little gank and every little stab takes away some resources, and then eventually Splyce will break. For Splyce to get out of this one, they need to start using Tom Kench ulti, surprise Gragas behind the tower, you know, make a proactive move that catches H2k off guard.
And of course, they do have the tools to make those proactive moves. Gragas, as you mentioned, the Ash Arrow, a great tool. We saw Prey put it to good use earlier today in the LCK final. No cleanse available for any of the members on the side of H2k, so a potential opening, but not one Splyce have capitalized on.
Now remember, this is something that we have seen from Splyce a lot throughout the regular split. They often fall in deficits at around the 50-minute mark, but they always find a way of coming back into that, because this is a smart team. They know how to use their composition well, and once these mid-game fights around objectives like the Dragon and maybe even the Rift Herald start to kick off, is really where we should start to see the strengths of Splyce's team play.
Yeah, I feel like H2k, they send their jungle to the right side of the map because that's where they need pressure, but the blue buff is up. So Odoame is using his advantage that he has top to hand off blue buff to his mid laner. He reveals enemy jungler, then he goes top to catch that wave. He always has lane priority over the Gnar right now, and you can like make advantages flow from one side of the map into the other. Right now, more pressure here with the culling. They're just trying to get the wave into the tower without it being cleared too much. That's their goal, because look at Talia with Rek'Sai. H2k is spelling out their plan ahead of time, but the problem is there's so little Splyce can do in React, other than maybe get a lucky teleport.
Oh, Tom Kench trying to carry into safety, hits him with the Prey Seeker, beautiful shot, Immortality coming in from the Taric, and vulnerability to damage, more than enough to grab that kill. One picked up, Kabi next on the menu, not even going to get Vander in return.
Honestly, beautifully executed here by H2k. The presence of mind for Jankos to cancel that Tom Kench ulti. Any semblance of damage being triggered will cancel that channel. It channels for 6 seconds. If somebody hops into it, it will complete and go off immediately. But the problem was, Kabe hopped in. He was ready for the Tom Kench glorious ride. Then a Prey Seeker stopped it all. H2k looking for this tower and more.
Not going to get the stun. Hop, skip, and a jump out from Wonder, but Splyce just having to concede this tower.
And we're seeing now the advantages of being able to have your top laner go wherever he wants. He'd already built up that massively in the top lane. He has the workings of his Trinity Force nearly completed, and because he had that teleport available, it was a 5-man setup in the bottom lane, and you can just see the setup already coming in with that deep ward from Odoame teleporting in from the lane. 5 members of H2k guaranteeing the double kill in the bottom.
Yeah, Jankos set this up, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, Jankos, he was playing on the right side of the map, but his mid laner wanted blue buff. So instead of going like a traditional route, it was like, okay, it's 12 minutes of the game, I need to hand off my blue. No, somebody else can do that for Talia. I go right side. Talia with the blue buff pushes in mid lane really easily, and we siphon those advantages, siphon that power into the bot lane, and go for a dive. H2k really planning out their moves ahead of time, playing with the right amount of pressure, and this spells out how the series is going to evolve, and also why Talia is ranked so highly and such a valuable pick in LPL over in LCK2. You know, sometimes even as far as first pick mid, and why Aurelion Sol is banned out too, because he can actually match the push and do similar gameplay patterns. It's all about push mid and translate that pressure into bot and top right now.
Yeah, impressive play from H2k. Not only are they taking advantage of these top-tier picks like Talia, these rising picks, but they're distributing their resources, as you mentioned, so well, being sure to help out each individual lane as best they can, giving the opportunity for Jankos to make these daring plays.
But now that these tier 1 towers have been taken down, the game does slow down for H2k. Luckily, they have a gold lead larger than they should have in the matchup. But this is where Splyce maybe has a way back in, because they have the Tom Kench that can do similar things to Talia wall, except he can carry an ally with him. Problem is, Kabe is fine.
Kabe That's a lot of damage coming out early, and it only gets harder, especially as the Talia's advantage continues to grow. 20 CS up in the mid lane for Ryu.
So now H2k have started to group up mid. This is the final tier 1 turret on their list of objectives to take. And Splyce have no answer because notice earlier on, Forgiven and Vander had already pushed up top lane. Senkox was expecting the 1-3-1 to come out from H2k. He is then forced to go to the top side of the map, throw out that wave. They don't have enough wave clear to deal with the pressure mid. When you add to the fact that Ryu had already chunked out Kobe, it was an easy tier 1 turret in the mid for H2k. They net themselves another advantage, so 5,000 gold in the lead and only 14 minutes in the
That's
game.
just what I was going to say. 5-1 in kills as well. Such a, I mean, just a domination thus far from H2k. Splyce look completely lost, and this is not how you want to start a series. Not only a series, their first best-of-5 series since they've joined the LCS outside of the promotion tournament.
Also super interesting to see Essence Reaver on Lucian being picked up here. Given the player that you would honestly give the Ghostblade build the most to. Kind of overextending right here now.
Well, potentially in trouble. Vladal goes down, Hemoplague. Heal up Senkux, but Tom Kemp's looking to carry someone out. No Prey Seeker this time. It's a little too late from the side of Splyce.
Bit of miscommunication there from Splyce because the play was already in motion with the fact that Senkox is in a great position, but look at Kobe, forced to flash.
Trying to make his way out, but he's got backup on the way. Tom Kent's ready. Unraveled Earth, not going to be enough in that circumstance. In goes Trashy, he's looking to make a play. Ryu knocked back into the team. In comes the Parallel Convergence, defensive use of that ability. Pulling back, Jankos now left alone, is going to take one tunnel out. We'll look to make a second one here over the wall. Splyce not walking away with anything.
Splyce biting back a little bit at the aggression of H2k. Unfortunately, they're not quite able to net themselves any kills, but this is still a pretty big thing for H2k because they forced the flash out of Kobe. He's not going to have that available in these next fights, and Ryu, with his use of his E and W combo, it's actually very impressive with how often he's able to tag up Kobe.
I mean, clearly Ryu was very experienced on this champion, but additionally Ryu was also lost out on those summoner spells, so it feels like if there's an opportunity for Splyce to capitalize, this could be it.
Yeah, Splyce need to find a moment where H2k is kind of sleeping. Like 5,000 gold lead at this point in the game is incredibly large. At this point, Splyce may very well be planning like their next game already in their heads, you know, where did it go wrong in terms of like approach to the game. If H2k comes out with a playstyle like this, it is fair to assume that they have multiple iterations of it, you know, different champions that can achieve the same goal.
Bear in mind, Splyce chose the red side in this first game. They were the highest seed. They decided that they wanted to try and get the counter pick. They willingly gave over the Rek'Sai knowing that Jankos would prioritize it. So far, they haven't had any answer to it.
Well, honestly, they were aware of Jankos' pathing on the Rek'Sai, honestly. They dodged the level 2 gank. Yes, there was a flash on Mickey, but I think what the biggest failure of Splyce was the fact that they weren't ready for the combination of the Rek'Sai and the Talia separately, which is a bit of a surprise because Senkox plays a lot of Talia. Even Mickey in off-roll plays a lot of Talia in solo queue.
We're trying to get out of here. Knockup does go down. He's got plenty of health, though. Should just back out of that one. But a lot of aggression coming in from H2k, and this team has been in the driver's seat since minute 1. Now, of course, as we continue to look at the game, looking back at the draft, do you think it's worth trading this Rek'Sai pick for the Gnar Ashe? We haven't seen either of these really be too impactful at this stage.
I think for me, it boils down to the biggest play that kind of sums up why Splyce is losing was a teleport back into top lane from Wunder. And the failure for Splyce to realize as a team that the correct play there was to yield top and go for a cross map. They were so tunneled on not giving the brick the first tower goal over to H2k that they tried to chase a loss. And that generally leads to bigger losses. Sometimes it's okay to trade and scale and then take advantage of the open map with the Tom Kench ulti, you know, match that Ryu wall roaming power.
But I do want to keep my eyes on some of the items that have been done because remember that Splyce, they still have a pretty good scaling comp. They have the Ashe, they have the Vladimir, and Gnar is still going to be that tanky frontline. And when you combine that with the amount of crowd control that a Gragas can provide, they still have a lot of team fighting power. And this is something that you could argue that Talia is not necessarily the best at. She's really good at roaming, she's really good at skirmishing, but in the full 5-on-5 team fights, she is a little bit harder to play and she can't add as much value as necessarily a 2-item Vladimir can. So
Talia, she excels at kiting,
yeah,
more or less.
exactly.
It's going to be hard to make that happen here. Wunder's still having a good trade on Odo here.
Frozen
Mallet is an influencer in this matchup. Odo has the
Flash.
flash.
Burned out in the end of this top lane matchup, of course. Echo going to have the advantage for the most part in those 1v1s, but if he ever starts to lose, Frozen Mallet makes that so rough.
Now this was a problem with H2k, even in Spring Split for a tad. It's like once the map was open, they had a snowball, they were almost so bought into the macro hype that they did everything perfect. You know, they set up all the vision, but they never really pulled the trigger on anything.
Well, when we look back at their set versus Fnatic, I mean, it was a similar story. Their early game, they always got these big advantages, and while for the most part they did close out, they still had a few of those struggles. Of course, that's nitpicking. It's a 3-0. It was a great set from H2k, but when we look, there are some clear signs that they struggle in the mid game.
Well, I wouldn't call it struggling. I mean, these guys are 5,000 gold.
Okay.
What a struggle. Woo, that's like literally the definition of a first world problem. But if there's any way in for Splyce, you know, if we have to look for the 1% chance, that is the way Splyce gets back in. It's waiting long enough, staying even in gold gains, that relatively speaking, that 5k becomes less and less impactful later on. But it's still an enormous advantage here. We can't downplay it enough. Like, this is just shouldn't happen.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, though, what we have to remember is that the last time these two teams played, it was a similar story for H2k. Huge early game lead, and one over-aggressive play threw it all away from them. So I feel like maybe that is still with them and that they're playing a little too safe here.
Now bear in mind that a lot of the gold is coming from the fact that H2k have 3 towers to the 0 of Splyce. So they could look to pressure a little bit more in the top and trade this dragon for that first tier 1 in the top half of the map. It looks like they're not actually going to try and prioritize that and instead give a free objective over to H2k. I feel as though in this situation, perhaps you could have forced Odo to teleport into the top half of the map to try and protect it, or you could have netted yourself a free objective and closed that gold gap ever so slightly.
Problem here is for Splyce, they're working on their very limited vision here. They're also very scared. I think they traded the dragon for a good base timing on Senkux. They have the Vladimir in the side lane right now. Somebody needs to match that. Probably the strongest duelist left on Splyce. So if any pressure is going to come out, it's going to be from somebody influencing that Vladimir lane, or maybe, you know, a good Gnar flank.
Be interesting to see, and of course risky as well, because H2k working with about a 2 global advantage. Slee ult not quite global, but having more overall map mobility options coming out here as opposed to the single teleport coming in from Wonder. Splyce kind of limited in what they're going to be able to do when it comes to responding across the map.
Yeah, Splyce's plan right now is to stall this Baron vision from being set up. It's not about preventing the Baron, it's honestly from preventing the really deep red side Baron vision that H2k wants to put in here. And now we get to judge the wondrous Jankos Vander synergy as well. You know, support jungle going in, setting up that vision. Although at this point it might as well be jungle synergy because Jankos is strong enough to 1v2. You just walk in and water in his own.
It's pretty terrifying at this stage of the game. 0-0-5. At least Trashy's keeping up in farm, but just has not been able to have the same impact across the map. And it just feels like Splyce now pretty consistently on the back foot and just going to have pretty much just have to wait for H2k to make a mistake.
Yeah, this is where you get to judge the closing ability of H2k. Because first towers are open, they get the dragons, they did everything fine up to this point. There's no way they can get a bigger gold advantage without taking really risky moves, in my opinion. Because you need some objectives to draw Splyce to different areas of the map, and Baron definitely is one of those objectives. So bringing more pink wards to the party, they already have 3 in position, which is great. One of them is a bit wasted. It's the one on the Scuttle Grab location. Those actually have to move into Splyce's jungle, de-ward, and then they can force Splyce to face check. That is the goal that H2k want to achieve. Or when Splyce overcommit to defending that area, simply rotate down in the bottom lane, take your 2.
A lot more flexibility, of course, as mentioned earlier with the globals, but additionally, Splyce do have the luxury of that hawk shot. Will give them some reliable vision.
Bear in mind that Wonder is slightly overextended in the bottom half of the map. They could have set up for a flank with Jankos, but Wonder did read the situation. He's going to back off as a result. This is exactly as we were discussing just now. The fact that deep vision is right now the priority. H2k are getting a bit of deep vision in the bottom half of Splyce's jungle, but they're not quite able to do it in the top half. Notice the 2 pink wards, or 3 even, coming out from Splyce, trying to guarantee that H2k can't get that vision.
Yeah, and they're very important, those pink wards, because to truly get vision control, Vander basically becomes a rotating ward bot. We see an engage here in mid though from Jankos and Talia.
Looking for a pick. In comes the Echo, not going to get the stun. Weaver's wall isolates Odoamne on the other side. You're going to cancel it out, nothing going to come from it.
So that's an ulti and like an engage attentate from 1 flash in the jungler. So this is okay trade for Splyce. It does mean that Trashy now, if they want to kind of commit to a Baron play, is much more prone to face check himself.
Very important to keep that flash body slam as they look for more crucial engages in the future, or the potential Baron steals. Splyce look a little more confident after that exchange, though. Are taking this opportunity to push in the mid, but Odoamne is not going to have it.
It's important to remember that Ryu, without that ultimate, it is a little bit harder for him to set up plays, but H2k might be trying to set something up for themselves as Splyce are forced to back away. But now H2k do have positional advantage on the mid. Splyce are going to have to force to take the long way around to defend this tier 2 turret in the mid, but fortunately they have enough wave clear to stave off any push that H2k are trying to set up.
Yeah, wave clear, a very condensed H2k lineup here, grouping after using those globals obviously to collapse, but there's a good hold from Splyce. And we started earlier, 6 wins, 9 losses when behind the 20 minutes for Splyce. So they're one of the more resilient teams when it comes to coming back from behind. It's what we're seeing in this gameplay. It's nothing special, it's nothing astonishing, but they're just hanging on well. Mainly because they really like to challenge vision setup. You could roll over and trade nothing for wards and be like, okay, we're fine. But suddenly you're that burning dog in the comic. You know,
Oh yeah, this is fun.
this is fine. Splyce is not doing that. Those 2 pink wards at the entrance of the jungle make it so it's really hard for Vander to clear them, because he has to waste wards, clear the pink ward, base again, get more wards, and every time he bases and Splyce know, they can still win fights 4v5. And that's what's going to put H2k back on the map, and then they get some new wards in, and it's like kind of a cycle that's really hard to beat.
And of course, you can see them playing around those wards, but Yanko sees an opportunity now with so many members visible on the map to take out this vision. And Splyce starting to lose a little bit of control here, but they do have more wards ready. They will
Still a
retain
pink ward here.
control.
Has to be clean. Like there's 2 wards. There's a couple of wards being snuck in there.
Just looking at the ultimates available right now, everything is back up off cooldown. Even though Taliyah did have a couple of cooldown increases to that Weaver's Wall, it's still relatively low once you hit that level 11 mark, and that is going to be integral in order to set up plays. Trashy still doesn't have his flash available. He could be a target of focus early on, but really they want to try and shut down Kobby and Mickey as soon as they can, because these are going to be really big damage dealers in the next few fights, and if H2k really want to set up for the Baron, they need to try and shut down these low mobility targets.
One blue trinket has been cleared. Scuttlecraft has faded. Double pink was in position here, so this is a good setup, but Forgiven has to base.
Backing out, Ryu taking this opportunity to clear vision, but control of the Baron pit lies solely in the hands of H2k now.
Not sure if I agree with the Forgiven base, despite having a full BS sword pick up here, is actually allowing Splyce to kind of approach safely. This could be a punish right here, for example. Any brush, you know, Rek'Sai could come out swinging with a curling, following up, poking the jungler. But they get another free ward into the pit.
Weaver's Wall looks to isolate the team.
Like, Forgiven's not here. Like, he's coming from base. This is the story we're telling, right?
Yeah, I mean,
what is this play from H2k? It feels kind of not on the same page. Yes, they're isolating them for a Cloud Drake, but Splyce is fine, you know. They're keeping Baron alive.
You're also forcing this Taliyah the ultimate, which now has a 2-minute cooldown once again. So you're not going to have that available to force any other plays. You don't get any summoner spells off the back of it. Yes, you're going to get yourself the Cloud Drake, which is a nice pickup, but Baron is really the play where you have to, where is the best place to force Splyce to come to you and get that fight that you're so desperately after.
well, H2k looking for a fight of their own, but while they're busy taking that Cloud Drake, Splyce take the opportunity to clear out that pit, to deny that vision, and to regain control of that area.
2.2k gold, all to Wunder, who's now keeping
Forgiven,
it.
knocked back. Tark ult on the way in. Odo doing so much damage. They're backing out. Wonder, he has the Mega Gnar up and available. Tark ult has already been used. They're looking for a way into the fight. Senkux is in the back line. Trashy moving for war. Wonder hops over. Flash in. Yankos knocked back. No. Wonder knocked back into the team. It's going to be his burial. It's Forgiven picks up the kill. Senkux maybe looking for more.
H2k have such a great comp for kiting, and they're not done yet.
Kabe in trouble. 2 stacks on the Z-Drive Resonance. Not going to find the third. H2k looking for more. Odo looking for more. He's going to grab it. Snap back to safety. H2k in control.
A fight that looked so horrible initially for H2k with Wonder coming in from the flank is just played so beautifully. Something that you have to respect from Taliyah is her ability to just constantly walk backwards and fire off those Qs multiple times. She has the Rylai's completed. It is so hard to close the gap without a successful flank, and this results in H2k now going for this Baron.
Yeah, going for Baron. Oh, the one that finishes off Kaba, and then it snapped back to reality for Splyce here. They realize that they overchased. They look good for a second. They're not trying to flank off, but there is potential finisher. But look at Senkux, pretty sustained in this entire ordeal.
Does get stunned, is locked up, and knocked down. What burst damage coming in. Mickey trying to keep Trashy alive. They want to be able to steal, but it doesn't look like they're going to get the opportunity. H2k walk away with the Baron, and that is everything for them.
Cool Cloudman collected here. H2k biding their time, slightly overstepping, but because they played the early game so well, they kind of survived this fight. And look, it's a good timing here. Wunder bases, gets to spend 2,200 gold, and then goes for 2D flank. I think he takes the wrong path. If Wunder paths down here instead of up, he could actually swing behind his massive 4-man unit and combine, I think, the Mega Gnar with Senkux going in. So this is honestly a pathing mistake from Wunder. But right here, it's too deep. Flashing for just a single knockback on the enemy jungler is too greedy. I think Splyce should have been happy that they stalled out H2k, and really good kind of situational awareness from H2k that the hunter kind of became the huntee, you know? Like, it switches around, you know? H2k were the prey, but then after Splyce overreaching, Splyce himself starting to just play.
And of course, H2k with such a massive lead, those mistakes are just compounded. If you make you can't afford to make mistakes at this stage of the game. You made mistakes in the early game, and you're running out of opportunities to come back. And H2k, now with Baron, are just going to make it that much harder. A 8k gold lead, approaching 9k, backing them up.
For H2k now, all they need to do is set up the 1-3-1. They have the Talia in the top lane. They already have Odo in the bottom. And with all three lanes pushing in with these Baron-empowered minions, and with side laners that honestly you cannot duel at this point, Splyce are definitely struggling for options to come back into this one.
Yeah, and this Talia ultimate is actually quite fantastic once you're sieging base. So if they get past this tier 2 tower.
Ooh, Wonder, knockback. Not gonna get much off it, but solid play coming in from Ryu.
You actually shut off people from defending turrets with the wall. You just cast it right behind the wall, and either they're stuck in front of the wall and they can get hit without the opponents getting turret aggro, or you do it in the same place and the enemies end up behind the wall and you can hit tower without the enemies being able to hit you. So
Looks like that's going to be the setup,
like
just
this.
as predicted.
And then you get free access to the tower if you have minions. The problem is it's timed poorly and there are no minions. But in theory, this concept can be executed to get Forgiven on the top left, 3 hits on turret, and then he can dash out any aggression. Because the gap closers have to be used to hub over the wall.
Well, while we're busy focusing on the top side, Odo's spending his time on the bottom, and Senkux just does not do enough damage to break him off. And now they're going to move to an open inhibitor. H2k taking control.
They have now extended the tower lead to 7-0. They haven't given Splyce any windows of opportunity to get any real structural objectives themselves. And now Odo coming in extremely quickly.
I mean, we have to kind of repaint this picture. Like we were talking about, H2k have been, you know, struggling into closing out a little bit. But I don't think we've stated enough how H2k is only 1 kill away from a perfect game.
This is a nearly flawless performance. They've been out ahead of Splyce at every single step, and the one opportunity Splyce found in that mid lane, poor execution, cost them so much, cost the life of Wonder. For a young lineup, you have to be wondering how they're going to deal with the pressure if they go down a game here.
Notice that now, without the Weaver's Wall on Ryu, they've started to group up as a 4-man unit, putting a little bit more pressure down while Yanko splits in the top lane, and here comes the arrow.
Arrow connects onto Ryu. Meganar is going in, but the Taric ult is in response. Can they burst him down? It hits him in the end. Ryu's going to be able to make it out. Suddenly, Mickey is in trouble. Ryu finally dropped. The team fight's continuing. Senkux is in the back line. Odo with the 3-man stun. Snapback backs off, but H2k walk away with the inhibitor.
Yeah, and you see why Splyce is a team, though, that made it to, you know, the top 2 position here in the league, because their team fighting is extraordinary later in the game. Those were some really sweet combos, but the saving grace was that ultimate from Vander.
And for Splyce, that was the first kill that they have gotten since 4 minutes into this game. Slight morale boost, I suppose, is the bright side of this, but they did end up losing an inhibitor. But as you were saying, Crapo, that ultimate coming out from Vander was superb. It bought so much time for H2k, almost allowed them to turn the fight around, but unfortunately they weren't quite able to net any kills on their way out. So keep your eyes on this arrow. Lands nicely onto Ryu. He gets thrown back into the rest of his team, but he just manages to get in range of Odo, so he's able to chime in for that invulnerability. But then a very good ultimate from Trash, who knocks him back into the rest of the team. But then the priority from H2k then is just take the inhibitor, let's back away, let's not overcommit.
Yeah, these guys also rely on each other. Wunder doesn't waste his flash because he knows Temkench has the Devour ready to gobble him up and then spits him out. Can flash out at a later instant, kind of sucking in H2k 1 by 1 into the fight. But the 1-for-0 with Inhib still going down isn't exactly what Splyce is looking for here. Incredibly impressive performance from H2k. Votes were kind of divided, you know, is Fnatic going to take it, is H2k going to take it? They took it convincingly, and they're carrying on that stride. They're looking for a 4-game winning streak here in playoffs.
Splyce are really struggling here, and H2k absolutely ramping up as they grab their 3rd Ocean Drake. And you can just see how efficient this team has been. Even in that last fight, Odo being the one to take the step towards Rio, to get the protection on him, the team communication looking pretty flawless. And Splyce honestly just looked lost this game. They have been struggling to find a way back in, and to be fair, I don't know how many there have actually been.
And now Splyce, they really are on their last legs because there's a big minion wave pushing in the bottom half of the map. Senkux is forced, and here comes the Talia wall to get this next objective.
Zoning off, maybe looking to knock Yanko's back, but he's just going to flash to safety. A little bit of damage down on the turret, but the wall disappears.
Still not the biggest fan of the way Ryu is incorporating this wall into the gameplay. Feels very willy-nilly, almost at random. But hey, because you can.
He's got the
It's about
lead.
sending a message.
He can afford.
You see this ultimate? I don't need it. I'll fight you without it.
He's doing a representation. This is the mountain you have to climb, Splyce, to overcome it.
Oh no, he's like this kung fu fighter with one hand behind his back. Like, I'll take it with one of them.
Well, Splyce are going to have two hands behind their back pretty quick here if they do not stop this push. Tower's set to go down. Yanko's taking a decent amount of poke. In comes the Tarkal. Wonder looking for the setup. Hits 3 into the wall, but they're immune to damage. Nothing comes out. Mickey takes him out to safety. Senkux getting 1v1 on the side by Forgiven. He's going to heal up, but H2k.
We're going to need to see a Taric pickup from Splyce or a ban early. Honestly, H2k are getting put in these positions where they can get massively punished if it weren't for that invulnerability from Vander. He, again, has such a large impact on the series.
Tower going down. Yanko's back into the middle of the fray, maybe looking for their second inhibitor here. Splyce not quite as prepared for the fight as they once were. No ult available from Wonder.
Bear in mind, they do have a big minion wave from the bottom lane. Someone has to go and deal with that, and H2k going to use this as an opportunity to force the second in hit.
Backing off, cast is a little bit of poke, but H2k really taking their time. They know they've got this win if they play smart.
They're basically waiting for the Gnar ultimate to come available again here. Wonder purposely going into Mega Gnar as he's harassing here. Ultimate still briefly on cooldown, but HK don't know that.
Ball up. Pops out. Wonder looking for the setup. Hasn't found it yet. Leaps forward. Is going to knock 2 into the wall. Vander, of course, no ultimate available yet. Still waiting on that cooldown. Odo set to fall, but he snaps back. It's a bit of extra damage, but Weaver's wall is stopping the fight, and Senkux caught in the crack there. Can't get out at all. Flashes forward. Shut down onto Forgiven. This is the fight that Splyce want. They're moving forward. Ryu, though, kiting out. Wonder cannot chase any further. No, the confidence is there for him. He is not scared. Has to back off in the end, but Splyce making moves to come back.
Really resilient Splyce here, refusing to give up that mid lane inhibitor, and they find Forgiven rather without this flash in the fight, despite being down over 12,000 gold initially here. And now they're looking to force maybe a bit too much though as they're heading to Baron.
Look at this, Senkux, he has 50% of his health, but he has the Crimson Rush to get back in. Odo has the GA as well, and he's trying to stop Splyce from doing this Baron.
Taric on the way, the team looking to back them up. Splyce doing decent damage here. Trashy now in the pit. I don't know if it's going to be enough. H2k moving forward. Hemoplague goes down. Wonder ready for a fight. Leaps forward. Knocks back. Yanko's in trouble. Vander separated from the team. This is their opportunity, but the ult comes in. Flash comes in from Vander. He's going to back them up, and Odoamne is unkillable. Vander delivers the stun into the back line. Splyce are falling apart. The health bars are too low. Odoamne does too much damage, executing members left and right, and H2k clean house.
Yeah, Odoamne MVP in this fight in my opinion, because he's challenging Mickey on the Tahm Kench. If Tahm Kench is taken low, he can no longer save and devour his own teammates. And even without Forgiven, HK clean up, because Splyce, they got their hand too deep in the cookie jar.
I gotta say though, honorable mention to Vander right there, because his use of the stuns on top of Odoamne to set him up to get those backline kills was absolutely phenomenal. Vander as well with the use of the ultimate once more to buy time as Wonder gets his ultimate once again is going to result in H2k taking game 1.
Second tower falls. Nexus now set ahead of them. H2k making a confident first move in this best-of-5 series as Splyce have to be left wondering what happened.
Well, push mid and roam happened. Ironically, it was such a great effect for, honestly, both teams that I would have expected to have the most awareness of this play pattern. Like, Ryu does this all the time in solo queue where he pushes and roams. Multiple Splyce members play Aurelion Sol and Talia.
Yeah, Wonder.
Believe perhaps they may have played it in scrims, you know? So they must have been ready for this. I think Wonder was just, it's the difference between playing in a scrim environment and getting on stage and being like, okay, you know, I died, let's make up for it. He should have never TP'd back to top lane. I think the trade should have happened, split the map, because Splyce have shown, even with like 3,000 or 4,000 gold down, I think they would have won this game.
Yeah, we've seen how good their decision-making be, how strong they can be in those situations where they get to come back. But, I mean, you're playing against a champion like an Echo. You're playing against a team with so much more mobility. Those mistakes count for so much more. But, of course, we've talked about it a lot. H2k has taken one game in this best-of-5 over Splyce. Let's head over to the analyst desk to break down how exactly they did it.
Thank you so much, Sifa. Indeed, a commanding win by H2k in this first game, much like in their quarterfinal, getting off to a strong start. We want to take a look at picks and bans. And Reckless, I want to go to you first, because you had a lot to say about the fact that, yes, when you're red side, you need to give something up. Here, the rec side, but then also giving the Talia and also giving up the Echo just doesn't seem like a good plan from Splyce.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the way Splyce drafted, it kind of says that they consider Gnar and Ashe OP picks if, I guess, Sivir's out. But there's no top lane ban, so they probably just think that Gnar is OP, right? But in my opinion, I think the Echo matches the Gnar just fine, and I think you can just match the Ashe with pretty much anything, and it's fine as well. So it wasn't like that first rotation put like a mark on the game, you know? It just didn't really say too much, but at the same time didn't really take away anything. So in the second rotation, they just went for the Talia on the Echo, and they had already 2 OP picks together with a matching top lane and a late rotation bot lane, which means they will have pressure pretty much on every lane.
I think that was the most interesting thing, is looking at the series that you guys played against H2k, there was focus on top lane. There was the Aurelia ban, the Echo all coming out. And as you said, in this game, only the Shen, which is more of an OP as it is rather than a top lane. So Crepo was talking about it when it came to us. We know they already play the Talia. We know Senkux has played it and has looked good on it. So very kind of confusing why Splyce would let so much go away in the draft. They must have hammered home in scrims like the Na Ash and been like, these things are so OP. Max, does that happen perhaps that you've come across in the time you've had in LCS so far?
I mean, I remember playing Hecarim all the time in scrims and, you know, stomping every game and then going to scrim and get just shat on by God Gilius. So. No.
Yeah. An experience a lot of junglers have, I am sure. Yeah. Let's take a look at the beginning of the game, because picks and bans all done for. And then some craziness happened in the top lane with 3 subsequent ganks, and top laners overstepping, one just a little bit more than the other, Max.
I think if this happened to me, if I was Jankos and this happened to me, I'd be really triggered, because he probably communicated that Gragas was topside and top lane should play care. And then I guess Odwame decided to troll. And then Wonderware kind of returned the favor, and he died to a 3-man roam, which is really obvious. And then
why don't you cancel here?
I don't know. He just did this drastic TP that it was just a really bad choice. I think he tunneled on saving the first blood tower, but he just died for it, you know. And he didn't use that TP advantage on bot lane. He was going to lose that tower anyway. Might as well just go 5-man bot lane since Talia was roaming up top. But I guess he just panicked, and they got the first blood tower. Top lane was ahead. Jungle was really far ahead, so they pretty much won the early game, and which led to the dive bot lane.
That's something we were debating quite a lot about wanting to either save the tower or make a play on bottom lane. Reckless, do you think, looking at how Tower First Blood has influenced that objective game, do you think making a play down on the bottom side is enough to kind of trade away damage on the tower, potentially losing it? 'Cause I don't know whether they would have actually been able to take it. If, well, I guess they would have unless he TP'd in.
Well, I think it's not even about where he TPs, it's actually what happens before, because they killed the Echo top right, and Echo had to TP back while the Gnar still saved his. So pretty much the only goal they have in the game for the upcoming 2 minutes is to make sure that the Gnar can use that to his advantage and the team's advantage. And with him having pushing lane towards him, he needs his jungle there. And I think it's sort of a semi-consequence to the draft as well, with them having Talia mid against the Vlad, which is not even running TP. It's probably just a matter of time, you know, before this guy can go to either side. But I think if you're not covering this big wave, what happened before with you getting a kill on the Echo, it doesn't really impact the game at all. Obviously, you know, he shouldn't TP top in that case, and I do think he should go for the bot play, because even though they will lose the top tower before they get the bot one, they might get 2 kills down there. Meanwhile, if he TPs top, he's not going to get any kills, you know. So I think that was definitely a poor choice, but I think it just all comes back to his first death right before he TPs, where he needs his jungle there, and I'm not really sure who to blame in that case, because I think anyone can really see that play. But it definitely needs to be communicated, because H2k is a team that will punish that.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest takeaway for me, that H2k just took it and ran with it, even though we saw Splyce not just rolling over and dying in this one, is what something they're very good at, is controlling the game and trying to come back. Judging from this game, what do you see happening in the next one? What is something that Splyce has to change to not get behind early, Max?
I think if Splyce run a bit more early game pressure champions, then I think from this game that we saw, H2k kind of didn't have an idea of what to do mid-late game, and Splyce were farming and coming back, but I think the game was already kind of lost by then. So if Splyce change up their bans and picks, and they pick something more early to neutralize the early game from H2k, then their mid-late game is more superior, and they'll come out winning.
One last thing before we head off, because I know the players are getting ready. We've got a few more minutes. But Reckless, one thing you said was critical during the game was where AD carry and mid were going for H2k, and that slowed down the game. Perhaps do you want to quickly elaborate on that?
Well, I think when you are as ahead as you are in H2k's case, you need to pretty much put a price on everything in the game. Like if Splyce is catching waves on either side, that should mean that perhaps maybe the opposite side gets an advantage. But I felt like with H2k putting their duo mid, they kind of just gave Splyce a way of winning the game by just stalling it out. And I think if they were to put their duo on the side lane instead and keep the Talia mid, which works as a TF in some sense, like she can go to either side at any time, they would have a much faster paced game, because they would just push up the side and Splyce would have to match with an equal amount of numbers, and then they could either make a play on that specific side, or they could rotate their duo to mid or both and just continuously pressuring the map while giving, like, putting a price on everything: jungle camps, waves, even towers. But yeah, they just ended up stalling the game for 20 minutes, and Splyce actually had a chance of winning this game, but I think they overcommitted in the mid-team fight, and after that it was just lost.
Yeah, judging from everything I hear here, it's definitely not totally in favor of H2k yet. We're going to see if Splyce can fight back, but we're going to take a quick break. Before we go, let's take a closer look at the story of one of our semi-finalists today, runners-up in the summer split, Splyce. For the full version, check out lolesports.com.
A perfect team.